Loosen up, man.
Here we go. Stand by, everybody. Cool. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Improv U Show, the Yes and You Show. I am your host, Anthony Francis, and I am very excited today because I am with uh, one amazing group and one amazing person. Five amazing people. Hey, remember that intro I said I was going to butcher? Here we go. I'm very excited. The team from Black Improv Alliance is here. Are all of them here? Wait for it. Wait for it.
Uh-oh.
She here?
Drum roll, please.
Da! Yes.
Hello, everyone. She always
Hello.
makes an entrance.
So I'm very excited to introduce the team. Black Improv Alliance is here on the show. Give it up for Daryl
Hi.
and Alex and David and Stephanie. And we have someone else here today, very special guest, Mr. Paul Valancourt from Beer Shark Mice.
Hi, Paul.
Hey.
Hi, everyone.
So I'm really excited about this. Paul, I want to talk to you about your book, your YouTube channel, a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm really excited because you guys from Black Improv Alliance get to meet Paul Valancourt, who, if you don't know who he is, you will know who he is by the end of this. We should all know who Paul Valancourt is. That's my personal mission. So let me tell you why. So Paul Valancourt, I'm going to give only just a portion of your background, but correct me when I'm wrong. But Paul is a member of Beer Shark Mice, which is a great improv team out of Chicago, and they were originally started with IO.
We actually started at IO West in Hollywood. A couple years after the IO West out here started, Beer Shark Mice got together, and they were together for a few years, and then I joined.
Nice. Okay. Paul, also, you wrote this book, The Triangle of the Scene, which,
I did.
as you can see here, is a very, very important book to me as an improv teacher
Okay.
and as a student and someone who's just trying to, like everybody else, wrap my mind around how to do great improv scenes all the time with consistency. But you wrote this book. It's a great book. It's really easy to read. It's really easy to understand.
Thank
you. And also you do improv tips. So you do these 2 to 3 minute long, really short, fun improv tip videos that you post in our group, and I push very hard for everyone to watch because it's easily digestible, easy to understand, quick little tips. Why do you do that? What is it that's driving you to push positive or push improv knowledge to people?
That's a great question. Thanks for asking. Living in LA, it's a pretty big market, a lot of actors and improvisers and stuff like that. And I love teaching. I really love teaching. I've been teaching for a long time, and I love improv. I've been doing that for a long time as well. And so I just thought it would be a way to reach more people, because even if I teach a class that's like maxed out, like then I can touch or teach like 20 people at a time. And that's great and that's fun. But it's like, I think that what about people who live like far away from a big city, or people who are just starting in an improv community, or people who, are up 3 o'clock in the morning and want to learn about improv, or whatever. What about those people? So I thought I could just start sort of sharing what I know about improv in these improv tips. And then it's sort of grown from there. And I've done a bunch of guest improv tippers. And also I just did sort of the end of last year, I did like a 6-part series about set games for the Herald. So one of the things we explore in the Herald is these sort of game slots or whatever. And so I did a 6-part series about those improv games. And that's a little bit longer form stuff. That's like more like 30-minute videos. And I also did one about the invocation, which is an opening that has a mixed sort of reputation. So I did that. But I basically do it just to share improv and just to sort of get the word out there and just share what I know with other people and it's been really super fun, really interesting to hear sort of responses from people. Every once in a while I get like an email from Poland or from Germany or from Russia or wherever, where people are like, oh, I see your videos, I really enjoyed them, or I have a question or whatever. So it's like really great to interact with people about improv. That's really the sort of the basic thing of it.
So that's really where the passion comes from for you then?
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. What is it when did you first get started with improv? When did you get bit by the bug and you were like, oh, I got to do this forever?
Oh, well, 1,000,000%, I know the exact moment. I was in college, and my friend Thomas, one of my best friends, I was like a freshman. I just started college, maybe a couple weeks in. One of the guys I met that I really sort of like, just sort of vibed with, he's like, "Hey, I'm doing this improv show. Do you want to come and check it out?" And I was like, "Okay, you know how you are in college, like whatever, all right." So I went, and part of the show was this guy trying to find out who made music. Right. And so he's like questing the whole time. And then finally, he gets to the end. These two guys come out, like, "You can't go in there." It's like, "Yes, I am." And he pushes past these two guys and like, you make music, Paul McCartney and Paul Simon and John Lennon. And then the guy who was Paul McCartney spoke up, and he was like, "Right, mate, you should make the music first, then jazz it up for everyone else." And I was like, like it totally like blew my mind. It was such like a twist of the whole operation. That I was like, "Oh my gosh." And I said literally out loud to myself, "That's what I'm going to do with the rest of my life."
That's really funny. Hey, and also for you guys, if you have a question for Paul, if there's anything you want to know, please feel free to chime in. I want you guys here because it's just a cool kind of chill hangout. I know you guys were like, "Should we keep our cameras on?" Keep your cameras on. Yeah, hang out. Yeah, that's great. That's really funny. So,
I do have a question though. Okay,
yeah.
okay. When you said something about your invocation, about invocation that got
the invocation.
What were the mixed reviews? Were people like not accepting it, responding?
Well, I think that sort of having done the invocation, taught the invocation, sort of when I first started like years ago, we only had one opening, and that was like the word pattern opening. But Dell had worked on this other opening called the invocation, and it's very theatrical. You have to really like lean into it like really hard, and it's kind of like it makes people feel like, "I don't know, is this dumb or whatever?" But I think you really lean into it. Whenever I've done it in class, if people really lean into it, or give it a try, I think it's really fun. But people have a hard time doing that, and so when I say, "Okay, well, let's try the invocation," people are like, "Oh, invocation," or whatever. I think that people have just sort of mixed feelings about it. Like some people really love it, some people really hate it. And I just wanted to sort of give it like, I really love it. And so I really wanted to sort of give my best version out to the world. Like, here's what I think it can be. Here's how fun I think it is. Here's why I love it. Take it or leave it. I've said my case. Like, just see what you think. But I think people have mixed reviews because it's so like, because you really have to sort of give over to the theatricality of it and really super lean into it.
Okay.
Daryl, you would love it. We have not done it because I'm one of those people he's talking about.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. What is it, Stephanie?
You'd be amazing at it, though.
Right, and I think it just vibes with different people's personalities and background and stuff. Like, I liked when I was growing, and still now, I like D&D and mythology, and I was a philosophy major. So like, sort of this kind of like, sort of the big theatricality about like really was like natural to me, right? But Stephanie, what is it that you don't like about it?
I feel
Stephanie's our resident straight woman.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel ridiculous.
I get it.
I'm just
That's
like,
a very
this
common
soap. It's
Right.
too much for me.
I get it. That is the number one reservation, is people feel ridiculous doing it.
That's how I felt with the with organic openings. I felt that way for a long time, and then I took a really great teacher, Rance Rizzuto, who's like, this is how you do it. And after that, I was like, these are great because it's all about the exercise of working through that content, like, or getting that initial suggestion and then like letting it mushroom out and become something so different. And we're going through that process. So I totally feel you on that, Steph, because I'm the same, or was the same way. Yeah.
Yeah, Stephanie, let me ask you: Have you seen the video about the invocation?
I have not. I haven't seen your video on it, but I have seen it done well and enjoyed watching it. But it's one of those things that I'm like, looked cool when you guys did it. I don't want to.
Not for me. Yeah. Totally. I totally get that. I think sort of the thing of it is, one of the things I really love about it is sort of the underpinnings of it, right? It is, you can feel really ridiculous doing it. You're really taking a big theatrical chance, right, out there. You're really risking a ton. But the thing I love about it is that it really sort of, in this really big way, connects us back to the ritual sort of roots of theater, right? And so then we're sort of like conjuring up these like bigger sort of energies and these sort of bigger sort of context. And I feel like when we sort of really can connect to that that helps ground it a little bit. And then we sort of like churn up these big sort of primal energies. So then like the first scene coming out of like, I am cigarette. The first scene, like after all this hoorah, it isn't usually like, so I'm here for the job interview. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're just like, well, whoosh, we went over the top. So now it's like the whole endeavor gets sort of raised up energetic. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. I think also, though, as an audience member,
yeah,
I enjoyed it more once I knew more about improv. The
Yeah.
first time I saw the invocation, I was like, this is weird.
I totally get that. That's a really great reservation too. It's like, maybe it's not for your most like mainstream, like first timers audience.
Yeah,
for sure. And I totally get that too. All of your reservations are super understandable, and they're all right. Like, I get that. It is a big theatrical risk. It isn't for like the first timers just seeing about improv for the first time. All of that's totally great. If you want to hear sort of more about it, I do recommend the video. I think that the team does a really interesting job of it and tries it out. So, but look, I'm not here to sell you the invocation. I mean, I'm
here to sell your invocations. I'm happy. You know, I just want to say it's so, and maybe Marissa can find that. Paul, is it on your YouTube channel?
It is. It's actually under a sub playlist. If you want to find it easily, it's called Set Games for the Herald. It is the 7th video of the 6-part series. You know, super awesome like that. And it's the 7th video in that playlist, so it's easy to find.
So awesome! I'm sure she'll be able to find that. It's interesting you say set games. I want to ask you about that, but one thing I just want to comment on is, you know, one thing that I've learned with improv is like an airplane takeoff, right? It's loud, it's a little uncomfortable, right? It could be very uncomfortable, and it's somewhat almost not inappropriate, but like it's not normal. But you have to do that if you want to get into the air. And I think what you're saying is right. You've got to have that energy, so you have that liftoff. So that first scene isn't that, oh, hey, you know, but it's like something bigger because you've got that. Right. It's more of an energy kind of boost, right?
I think so. And I think it sort of like really stirs up the spirits of the room and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, we don't play like dirgy sort of music before the show. We play upbeat music, fun music, gets everyone sort of jazzed up, the audience too, right? And the invocation is just sort of like another element of that sort of thing. Yeah, I mean, we're in this moment with the audience. We're sharing our energy with the audience in that moment. And so I think that sort of they'll go kind of where we take them. They're there for the ride, theoretically, in general. They're there for the ride. So it's like, okay, this is kind of a crazier ride, or this is kind of a regular ride. You know, and it's also, I like a show that like comes out of the gate, like blam, like comes out of the gate. There's some shows that are also great that come out with a slower start. TJ and Dave, super slow start, right? But then it builds like brick on brick. Or there's a group out here called Quartet, also super slow start, super tiny moments. And that's great. I love that show too. I'm an admirer of both of those shows. But when I'm doing a show, I love to like boom, like come out of the gate, guns blazing. That works for me.
Yeah, because then you're not in your own head. You're just kind of, that's what I feel for me too. I need to come out big and strong because that's going to help me. Because just like everybody else, I get down. You know, the day beats me down or whatever, and I'm on the ground and I'm not up in the air. And it's like, how do I do that? You mentioned set
for sure. And can I ask a quick question for Black Improv Alliance? You guys do. I was watching some of your videos today, and I saw that you guys do like a lot of improvised songs.
Yeah,
right?
We're back on the improvised musical stuff.
That's great. And so what I think about that is, I mean, that's a big theatrical risk too. Like, I was in an improvised musical a long time ago. I dropped out because they were like, "We're really going to sing." And I was like, "No, we're not." I was like, as soon as it got like serious about singing, I was like, "No."
Play your strengths, gotta play your strengths.
Talk singing, okay. Improv singing, yes. Real singing, no thanks. And so I jumped out. But how do you guys sort of like jazz up or get ready for that sort of like, to take that risk? Because the improv in general is risky, and then improvised song on top of that I think is also risky because it's something that we recognize as an audience. We're like, oh, that's a song, or it's not. Do you know?
What was your question? I'm sorry.
My question is like how do you jazz up to that, or how do you get ready, or do you just like settle right into it, or is it like not even an issue for you guys now at this point?
That's a good question. We just go. I'm always making up songs in real life anyway,
Oh.
or bursting into
Right.
random interludes. So it's nothing to me. That's me personally. I'm not going to speak for my other three compadres.
Do you guys do like a warm up backstage? Do you do any of that, Jess?
I'm a singer, so I do vocal warm ups usually. Anyways, yes.
We'll do like hotspot,
Great.
1 through 10, A through J. But I think all of us are pretty naturally comfortable just getting a word and starting to sing. So
Right.
it just kind of plays to our strengths.
That's
Yeah,
great. That's great. I think as an improviser who's been doing it for a long time, it's really helpful and nice to do both, to find that thing that plays to our strengths and to settle into that and to raise that as high as we can go. And then also sometimes to challenge yourself, like, every once in a while, I was in Arizona for something and I sat in with this group and they were like, it's a musical. And I was like, okay, here we go. You know, and so I push out of my comfort zone. I think it's great to do both. But if you're all like sort of have a natural sort of proclivity for that, I think that's amazing.
Thanks.
And they do. David, were you going to say something too?
Oh no, I'm saying we don't have a dedicated exercise or warm up specifically that help us explode out the cannon, as it were, for the musical. But there's definitely outer reaches of different things where we do definitely push ourselves, even with the musical, to come out of our comfort zones and to grow and stretch. And you know, Steph is always brilliant with coming up with new, innovative ways to always push and do something that is fresh and different and out of the box. So it is challenging.
The secret is that David and Daryl are always on. Alex is the king of yes and I'm like, all right, we're doing this, so I guess I'm also doing this.
Sort of resigned enthusiasm.
Mm-hmm.
Just sell it. You know, the most important thing is just having confidence and sell it. You know, just get up there, and you may not have a great voice, you may not have a great song, but if you sell it to your audience, then hey, it'll go over well. You know.
So says the man who is part Frank Sinatra and part Barry White.
Oh, there you go.
Barry
Here's some
White.
pretty good credentials. But I think that's sort of improv in general, right? Is that we sort of have to just have the confidence and the certainty in uncertainty of like, oh, we're doing this scene. I don't know what's going on, but my character does. So I'm going to lean into that surety, that certainty, and we'll have it unfold as it unfolds.
Yeah, and if you don't know, then I mean, just ask them.
You don't learn.
I think that's a really great point that sometimes people don't sort of glean or just don't sort of connect to. Is if you don't know, it's okay to ask someone in a scene. If you were lost on the street, you wouldn't be like, no. Right. You would ask somebody directions, right? You're like, hey, is it this way or whatever? But in improv scenes, sometimes people don't want to do that. They're like, no, they're like every man. I'm just going to drive around. I'll find it. It's okay. It's okay to ask somebody. You know?
Masculine compass.
That's right.
Right? It's like orienteering or something.
Paul, you mentioned something about fixed games in the Herald. That's not something I've really ever touched on. I wanted to understand what you mean by that. What do you mean when you say fixed games?
Well, when I learned the Herald like ages ago, by lamplight, when I learned the Herald ages ago, we sort of had like certain games that were like what we call set games, right? Which were like short form games that had been kind of appropriated into this long form context, right? Mm-hmm. And so those were ones that we came up in the same way that we had one opening. We only had like a half a dozen games or so, or my favorite ones, right? And so
just to be clear, you're talking about the group games in a Herald. In a Herald would be fixed short form games. Sort of, yeah.
Okay. Like movie review, Everyday Olympics. Trying to think of what the other ones were. Everybody get in here. This sort of thing. Right, conducted story, all these kind of things, and so those are the ones that we came up with and that we sort of had, and then from there we started to innovate on them. So like instead of just doing like movie review, we use that same sort of context and that underlying sort of structure to come up with like one time we did a movie review, but it wasn't movies. It was an instructional video, like a corporate instructional video. And it was the same setup, two people narrating, then we'd see a scene, then we'd sort of like talk about it a little bit, and we'd see another scene, just like movie review. Or one time we did like, we're introducing, remember when Saturday morning cartoons were a thing? We did like introducing the new crop of educational Saturday morning cartoons. So we, just sort of appropriated that, or sort of repurposed that sort of structure or that scaffolding in different ways. And I always, when I teach the Herald, I always try to teach people these things at least, because each of those things is a game, but also the idea of movie review also has a bunch of lessons in terms of how do we narrate scenes from the outside, or how do we give and take between two different scenes, or these different skills that when you abstract them from the game are still super useful. Does that make sense?
Right. Do you tell the audience that you're going to do a short form game? No. Do you call it or host it? No, you just kind of go it, right, and do it.
We just roll into it. So, for example, if we're going to movie review, right, the third scene is like happened, and then someone brings out 2 chairs and sits down and says, "Hey, what's up? I'm Paul. Welcome to my YouTube channel. We're going to break down all the latest, coolest movies. This is my friend Tom. And Tom, how are you doing today?" Good, man. Good, right? And then we sort of do our thing, and it's like, and then we're sort of like, okay, great. So maybe back to the theme, we'd be like, let's say the theme is oranges. Like that'd be like whatever, but let's say it is. And I would say, okay, this is sponsored by the Florida Orange Council. A lot of movies dealing with oranges today. Our first one's called blah blah blah, and we just sort of go like that,
Okay.
So we just introduce it, just like a scene would start. That's how this game starts.
Right. But you as the team know that you're going to be doing this specific short form game during.
Well, that's a great question because that sort of gets into how much do we plan. I think that as a team, we sort of develop a vocabulary of openings that we like to do. We usually decide on that ahead of time. Games that we like to do, edits that we use in our show, like if we're singers or not singers, like if we're whatever, right? We sort of develop this vocabulary, and that vocabulary sort of says what our show is like, right? So if we're a team that always does, we always do the invocation, and we know that we know these 6 games, and we know that we love like soft edits, like that's kind of like all like figures into the big picture of our show, what it looks like. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay. That's just so different from what we do down here, but it sounds like we should definitely be incorporating that, because
what do you do there?
Well, for me, for the teams that I've been a part of, the group game that we do is basically just described as it's a group scene where everyone's involved, but it has nothing to do with the existing scene work. Like, none of the other scenes, none of the other characters. Sure. It's a departure of anything we've done so far, but there is no structure to it. The only structure that we hold to it is that it's a group scene, so everyone really needs to be agreeing. I think the thing we run into is if you have 3 people in a scene, these 2 people are going to get along, and this person's going to be the odd man out, or it's going to be this, or whatever. But it's going to be one of those people. Like no one, you can't have more than 2 people in an improv scene because they're going to single somebody out or something. So that's kind of what we've been doing. But I like the idea because I think I've got some newer students that I'm giving them this direction for the Herald, and it might be better for them, easier, if for the next, couple of months or something, we focused on group games that had somewhat more of a structure, because then the Herald has a little bit more of a structure.
For sure. And I think that's a really good point, because what I think of when I'm teaching the Herald, I'm giving tons of scaffolding, tons of structure, right? And this is what we call the training wheels Herald. We decided the opening ahead of time. We usually decided the 2 games ahead of time, just to take some decisions out of the mix, right?
Yeah.
And then we're doing, and as we get better, then we sort of like scale back. We take a little bit more out. And then it's like, well, what if in the game of like, of the YouTuber who reviews movies or whatever, what if someone refers to that in another scene during the scene part? Like, hey, have you seen Love in the Orange Grove? I saw a YouTube video about it. It was like really interesting or whatever, And so now, oh my gosh, it is the same one, right? So for me, what I always sort of like think back to, and this is a weird piece of the puzzle, but years ago when John Belushi was on Saturday Night Live, a long time ago, right? And he was the samurai stockbroker, okay? Mm-hmm. He was in a scene with Buck Henry, and he hits Buck Henry in the head with a samurai sword. Unintentionally, completely by accident, just with the point of it, boom, right in his head. That happens like maybe the second scene of the show, right? And Buck Henry really gets hurt. He has to get stitches and he has a bandage, and everyone wears a bandage for the rest of the show. And the lead story of Weekend Update that night is, Chevy Chase says, drug-crazed John Belushi attacks Buck Henry with a samurai sword. Right? What I thought was so interesting about that is that even in this live show where everything's meticulously written, whatever, it was super responsive to the moment. Right?
Wow.
That something happened in the show that they didn't want to just like let brush past. They responded to it in the moment and then used like a clip of the thing and they whatever, and they just made it happen. And I feel like the same thing, once we sort of get the Herald going, even with using set games or whatever, those are ideas and information and worlds that can really blossom out and affect all different parts of the world, right? Those things are all one thing. And as we sort of let go of structure in the Herald, as we let go and let go, eventually we get to Dell's final definition of the Herald, which was an aesthetically pleasing arrangement of scenes, games, and monologues. What does that look like? I don't know. I mean, ultimately, a Herald should kind of take the shape of the suggestion or should be influenced by the suggestions somehow. A Herald about bananas should be different than a Herald about Jesus. It should look different.
Right.
To feel different, it should be different, right? And that's like once we sort of let go of all the structure, then we are just purely improvising, and the Herald has been a stepping stone to this more sort of pure, free experience, right? I think the Herald got codified and made into this end goal, which is great, but ultimately it's a stepping stone, right?
Right. It's so interesting. Yeah, I'm thinking about how we approach the Herald, and I think, you know, the way that I've been approaching the Herald with my students has been maybe too much of an advanced approach. The idea of the way I like to play the Herald is, it's a free form. We start and whatever happens, and we go with the flow, and that's great. But I think you're right. Of course you're right. Man who has much more experience than I. You are correct.
I don't know.
But like you're talking about having the Herald be really this step-by-step structured thing, which it was structured, and it needs to remain that way, I think, or at least with newer students. I think
that's a stepping stone thing. And when Dell was first working on the Herald years and years ago, like when it was very, very first, they were just sort of working on it for a long time. And then they did this show in a high school. Dell used to tell the story. They did a show in a high school, and they were sort of like in a van driving to this high school. And then they saw some like guys playing music on the corner. And they opened up the van, like, come on in. These guys like jumped. This is like very like 60s, like how Dell was. And these guys like came along, and then they were the band for the show. And then during the show, it was like, it was very closer to the origins of improv. And it was like, what are you guys concerned about? And what they were concerned about was the Vietnam War. So it was like this Herald that was like partly about that. And then one of the cast members in the thing is a soldier who gets hurt and shot. And guys from the audience, it just gives me chills every time I say it, guys from the audience jump out and help this guy to sort of where the medic was. And as Dell tells it, it's the first spontaneous breach of the fourth wall from the opposite direction. And it's like, it's like they really sort of like that ritual idea of what the Herald can be, you know what I'm saying? Before it got commoditized into like, well, we need to, if we're gonna have a class about it, then it's got to be this replicable idea, right?
Right.
And I think that's like the stepping stone, but ultimately we're trying to get to sort of, you know, telling these stories or having these experiences. I was looking at Black Improv Alliance's website and Facebook today, and I was like, and one of your goal is to tell authentic stories unapologetically. And I think that's sort of, that's it, isn't it? You know, we're sort of trying to share the human experience. And improv is that. That's what theater is. It's a reflection of the human experience.
That's great. And that really leads into...
This is not what this improv talk thought it was going to be, right? It's like, holy shit.
Let me tell you a secret. I have no plan.
Really good
but
thing.
I just want to piggyback off what you're saying, like the structure of Herald, because I do it at the theater at Just a Funny Theater, and you know, we do the invocation or one of the opening games, the three scenes, another game, the three scenes, another game, and then the last three we explode those worlds, and it helps the students to this is what's coming next, and still some of them don't get it because they're still
right, totally.
they're just doing different things, you know. So I would just say the structure helps. I mean, it's helped me a lot.
I
Just with that.
1,000,000% agree with you. I 1,000,000% agree with you. And I think sort of, especially as students are learning, that sort of knowing that the next thing that happens is a scene. It's the B scene. Or the next thing that happens is a group game. That is super comforting. And you sort of like can really like, it supports them, right?
Yeah.
But it flips when rather than supporting you, you're serving that structure, right? And we sort of have to sort of like keep encouraging our students and ourselves, keep encouraging everyone forward to go from, oh, this thing's there to serve me versus I'm there to serve this thing, right? Because we want improv to liberate us, not to imprison us. Like when people always say, well, how do I find my voice in improv, right? How do I find my voice in improv? Well, I think that your voice is always there and you're just learning how to let it out through a new medium. Like if I say, how do I find my voice as a painter? Well, by painting. I paint a ton and I sort of find out, okay, this is what it is. Like you guys were saying, you have a natural sort of proclivity for singing and you sort of have that sort of plays to your strengths. So, oh my gosh, then you let your voice out more in that part of the work, maybe more than the invocation. That doesn't play to your strength. That's not your voice. But we do it, and it's sort of like learning a new language. When I'm learning a new language, I can express very rudimentary ideas. But as I learn language and become fluent, then all of a sudden I can really tell you what I think, or I can ask you questions, or we can have a really interesting in-depth conversation, right? Because the medium of the language isn't an impediment to my communicating my ideas anymore. Same thing with improv. At the beginning, the medium of improv is an impediment to me getting my message out. That's why we sort of learn good scene work and stuff to sort of like smooth those things out, right? And eventually we sort of let go of the structure. And if we sort of like let go of those, or we can break it in sort of, as Picasso said, we can break the rules in a powerful manner.
Right. As long, because we've been working in that structure. Once you know the structure, that's when you can start to break those rules.
Right. And we're learning all those sort of underpinning skills, you know? And so it's not about doing the Herald right or by the numbers. Oh, we hit all of our 3 scenes, then we hit our game, and this is how I teach it. I teach it exactly like that because it's sort of like, it really is comforting to students and helps them sort of step up and take a bigger chance, right? But ultimately, then we got to let go. Like you said, you explode those last 3 scenes, right? Explode those. Well, then why not sort of start the explosion maybe in the second beat, or maybe we start in the first beat somehow, right? That those things, as they get more comfortable with improv and sort of more comfortable being uncomfortable, sort of, right? As that happens, then we can sort of like let off the reins a little bit. Okay, let's see what you guys got. Let's start here and see where it goes. But keep in mind all the great lessons we learned from the Herald. So let's say.
Yeah, you saying language is such a great example of it. It's a great analogy for it because you're right. You can only express yourself a little bit, and then only when you really know the language can you really express yourself. I want to get to some of the questions. We actually have some questions online. Alexandra said, would you say the connection of the improvisers helps create the structure of the scene? Would you say the connection of the improvisers helps create the structure of the scene?
I think so, because ultimately it's just the only sort of 2 active agents in that scenario are you and your partner, right?
Sure.
So it is this one of a kind sort of snowflake of a moment where you 2 meet in this moment at this time under these circumstances, and you have that interaction between the 2 of you. I think it is. I think it's the whole thing. It's like me and my partner connecting to each other. We've all probably been in scenes where you're in a scene with someone and you just don't connect with them for whatever reason. And then you're like, oh, edit, somebody quickly edit, please, you know? Yeah, I think it's 100% about that, connecting. And that's why sort of when you find people that you vibe with, like Black Improv Alliance, I'm sure you guys have this, and I have this with Beer Shark Mice, people that sort of have a, you know, sort of like, oh yeah, I really feel a connection with you. You work with them, then you can take bigger chances because you feel that connection between them. You're like, oh, I know that Alex is the king of yes and, so I'm going to really throw it out there because I know he'll totally support
that. That's great. Yeah, absolutely. And I you're right. There's nothing better than that. When you find people you vibe with, hold on to those people as much as you can. I want to get to some of the comments real quick, and I know, Paul, you've got to get running.
Right, I pushed our piano lesson back a little bit. I can hang out for a little bit.
Oh, okay. Oh, cool. So, just a couple of things. Kat Kenny from Actors Rep says, yes, the Herald is whatever it needs to be. Where we get into trouble is when the structure becomes the thing.
Yep.
Absolutely agree with that. My student, Alexander, says my students...
materialism.
What's that?
It's like spiritual materialism. When your spirituality becomes a thing that you're in service of, rather than sort of, it's like becomes the finger and not the moon. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, Bruce Lee.
Yeah, right. And so when you're sort of looking at the finger instead of the moon, that's when you're off track. It's dogmatism in its own way,
Man, you just like taking me to school just every day.
Anthony, I've been thinking about improv for a long time. More than anyone probably should.
I feel the same way, but I think it's so interesting that, I wrote a long time ago, I wrote an article about, it was just like a little quiz. It was who said it? Was it Viola Spolin or was it Bruce Lee? And it's hard to 100%. Tell the difference. It's
so many things.
Yeah.
That's why improv is like, improv is like life, and why so many people draw inspiration from. I know for me, for my own personal journey, if I may for a second, I know that I've totally, like, the course of my life has totally been changed by getting into improv and saying yes and to stuff, and like I'll try that, and I'll sort of see, I'll yes and that and see, and the way that I deal with people. And when I work in reality TV. Sometimes when I work with editors, I always try to sort of like make my partner look good, and maybe the producer says to me, hey, that was a really good cut. I'm like, well, you should thank Dave, the editor. He did a really great job. We worked together on it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, make your partner, have fun and make your partner look good. After 30 years doing this, that's all I figured out, man. Have fun and make your partner look good.
Nice. Well, we'll stick around because I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so glad Black Improv Alliance. I'm glad you guys are here. I want to get to you guys now.
I've been talking so much. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. Everyone gets 30 minutes. That's the rule. No more, no less. No. So Black Improv Alliance, you guys, thank you guys for being here. I wanted to talk to you, and as you know, we all get along as your coach, as your friend, and as an audience member. Ever since I saw you guys, the first time I saw you perform was the first time, I want to say it was at my theater. Was it the first time I saw you guys perform at my theater?
That'll be hilarious.
I think so. Unless you came to Speakeasy.
No, I hadn't come to Speakeasy, so I think the first time I saw you was and I was like, this is amazing. So what I thought was interesting was you don't have a piano player, you have no MD. You just
all acapella
music. It is very, very difficult to do that, and you guys pull it off. And then the Countdown Improv Festival. You have a logo. You have an Instagram account. You promote yourselves. You are, in my opinion, a great example of an improv team. There are maybe a handful of improv teams down here that. And when I say handful, I mean 5. I wouldn't even say 5. I know Clickbait Comedy is another one. Like, you guys promote. You get your name out there. You're doing stuff, not just as an improv team, but even as a, or not just as improvisers and actors, but as you're a group that now you're doing some philanthropic stuff. Can you tell me a little bit about the Ben and Jerry's thing that you guys just did?
Sure. I want to shout out another indie team, Society Circus Players. We're talking about indie teams.
Yes,
those are people too.
They're on the
But yeah, so it's first. I would say that caught us completely off guard. We did not plan to do an ice cream outreach today. We are all very vocal about people and organizations which have supported white supremacy and how much we do not approve. So when Ben and Jerry's came out the gate swinging with their Black Lives Matter statement, we said, let's be as vocal about people and businesses that we want to support. So the initial idea was, let's send ice cream to 5 tired Black people. Like, we all have enough disposable income. We can afford 5 Uber Eats orders. So we put up a post inviting people to send us their order and their address. And very few people did that. But a lot of people said, I would like to donate. So we were like, okay, yeah, sure. Maybe we can send ice cream to 8 people or 10 people. Several $100s later, we were like, oh, this is a thing that is happening.
That's a lot of fish food.
Right.
Oh yeah, a whole lot. Lots of pints.
So David got in touch with his sister-in-law, who is a social worker with Citrus Family Care Network. I wrote it down so I'd make sure to say it right. And Alex and I went to Ben and Jerry's earlier today and cleaned out the case. When I told the manager, Melanie, what we were doing, she said, "Oh, that's amazing. I'd love to give you a 20% discount." And then she got on the phone and came back and said, "I talked to the owner. We're giving you a 50% discount." And I was like, "Give us all the cakes and all the pies,
all those cakes
$20 to buy ice cream." So we got together. Then Alex helped me, deliver the stuff. Then he had to go somewhere. I met up with Daryl. David joined us, and we went around with our social worker friends and delivered Ben and Jerry's ice cream cakes and pints and Black Lives Matter messages and spread love to, it was over 10 families and more than 50 people. So.
Wow. That's awesome. That's really great. You're also a real presence in the improv community. I know I have a student, Davon, who said to me, he's like, "Hey, why aren't there more Black people in improv?" I was like, "There are, and I'll introduce you to both of them." Like, we can get them on the phone right now. But you guys have met Davon and you've worked with Davon, and it's like it's great though that you're here and you're doing it, because it just shows other people like, hey, you can do improv too, which is really just the message I have for everybody, is like, everyone can do this. What is it for you? Where are you? I guess what is the goal for Black Improv Alliance as a performance group? What are you guys looking for?
Daryl, you want to
spread Black joy, first of all. We want to make our people feel seen on stage in ways that we haven't been in a very long time. Just being the change we want to see, creating our tables. Like, we're always told, like, finding your seat at the table or whatever. We're like, no, we want to build our own table. And naturally, like, people will gravitate to us and what we're doing, because we wanted to do something a little, we wanted to make our presence known in our own unique way, because we know that our experience is different, and we want to convey that in ways that our people can recognize.
What was the who got this whole thing started? How did you guys decide? Did you all?
I love telling this story. Okay, so one of my friends, Jeff Quintana, I was taking a class with him, and one of my friends who took classes, who got me to take the class with him, his name is Anderson. He was like, "Hey, I'm in a show, come to my show." So I came to the show, and I saw, as I was pulling up, I saw this beautiful Black woman. I was like, "Oh, snap, we got Black people in improv? That's what's up." Okay, that woman was Stephanie. She rocked the mother effing house down. Not only that, as I walked in the room, it was like a raisin in a glass of milk. I saw David across the way in the audience. He was the only other Black person in the room. I was like, I'm sitting next to that guy. So we basically sat together and fawned over this goddess that was crushing the stage. And of course, we flanked her with like compliments and love, and showered her with.
There's a meme that says, "I can do all things through the Black people yelling, 'Hey!' that strengthened me." And that was David and Daryl that evening.
What inspiration for that meme? For sure.
And we came up to it, and as we were talking about, hey, if Wakanda had an improv team, it should be us. And so, like, unofficially, we're like, okay, we're gonna call ourselves the Wakandan National Improv Team. And then, so that was the three of us. And then, David, how did you get in touch with Alex? Because I know my part.
Yeah, Alex is my cousin
Yeah.
in real life. Serendipity,
Coincidence.
you decide. But
They have a bit. It's a
It's
It's a bit.
your two person cousin shows.
bit.
Yeah, that's great.
um, oddly enough, we were both getting into improv in different places and had no idea. We actually hadn't even really been in contact. And coincidentally, we ended up at Cutler Bay Community Theater doing improv. And I was like, yo! And ever since then, it's just, we've continued to work together. He became a part of Black Improv Alliance, and improv is bringing people and families together. And eventually,
Man.
Take that, Maury. We do the real.
I mean, I
family
actually when
here.
I met David and Daryl, it was very serendipitous, but I was looking for them. I had been doing improv in Miami for 5 or 6 years at that point and had played with another Black person, I think once in all of that time. I had been playing with Society Circus players, still very, very, very good friends. And at the time, there was a member of the group who dropped an N-bomb in a game with me during rehearsal. And it was a hot mess. And it just really underscored how very alone I was, that I had the support of my friends, but I didn't have anyone around me that could say, I understand because I've been there. And that was really kind of a soul searching moment for me where I realized I really needed a community of people who understood what I'd been through from a place of experience. So at that point, I actually started actively. I had been searching for, but really like, okay, I'm going to find some Black people, and if they're not in improv, they're going to be in improv. So I was very insistent about making this happen.
You will
Yeah,
make
but-
you will make them do improv. That's right.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
what you have to do. Wow, so you really straight up willed it into existence.
that's what I was about to say. It is
Yeah.
very much the manifestation of
Straight up, straight up.
because she is very powerful, and she operates under an open heaven, and basically anything she wants, she can reach up and pull it down. She also has the skills and the genius to execute and accomplish any and all things. That's for sure. But it
Steph,
definitely
is
was
he in
a harsh
trouble?
cry.
Was he? It
I
sounds
think
like
you have a crush on me.
Yeah.
he's in trouble and he's trying to make up for. No. All right.
Oh
Genuinely
no, the men
care-
are
genuinely-
naturally dishonest because it's the truth.
Yeah,
Oh, thank you.
Aw.
I have teammates that can corroborate that.
Nice. I want to get to a couple of these. So I have a message here. I don't know if I can read this whole message because it's a long message. Kat Kenny says, I know you've had shows since the latest deaths of Black people at the hands of police officers. Has that changed your work recently? I can only imagine that it can be difficult to be ruthlessly playful and spread joy while processing all of this. Also, I appreciate your rage and advocacy. So how do
I love
you
Kat, first of all.
how do you how has that been, and how does that affect your play, I guess? Kind of like the Vietnam story that Paul was mentioning. I think that's I think it's so kind of apropos right now. Like, what can we do as improvisers? But how are you guys dealing with that?
I mean, we're dealing with it as a family, but the most important thing is to, we're here to make people laugh and bring joy to every, not just Black people, but everyone's face. So, we started a thing.
I'm here to make Black people laugh. For the record.
Yes, everybody.
Sorry, go on. I'm so militant right now. This is how it's affected us. This.
So we do a show every Friday at 5:30, through Facebook Live, and we just thought it was important to keep that show going because through the midst of all this emotion, anger, and everything that's going on, people still need to smile and see Black faces and see that we're enjoying ourselves. So we did recognize what was going on last week on our show. Thank you, Stephanie. She did a phenomenal job doing that, and it's just we just want to keep going on just to bring smiles to everyone's face.
Yeah. And to add to that, we also give ourselves the space to feel how we feel. And we are always gentle with each other. So if one of us is feeling a certain way and is able to communicate with the rest of that with the rest of the team, like we'll find a way to either make it happen or postpone the show, because we fully 100% realize that nothing is more important than our mental health. And so if something happens and we just can't do the show, oh well, we just can't do the show, because how can we put smiles and laughs in people's hearts, on people's faces or whatever, if we're not well ourselves? So one thing that I've really been pushing the last week is that we all have a role in the revolution. And so this is our role, but we always are there for each other, and we always take care of each other, so that we can be our best selves, not just for ourselves, but for the audience who we're performing for. Because we always want to give.
I would add just real quick, our online forms are primarily short form, which we do tend to aim for light and funny. Our live performances frequently feature our custom, I guess, long form, the Tyrone, which frequently is more serious and does address more social issues. And there'll be light, funny stuff in there too, but that's a place where we tend to get deeper. We just haven't been doing that so much online.
Yeah, and you need a pressure valve. You need somewhere to be able to get a release, and especially if you can do that creatively, in a way that is definitely constructive, but it definitely gives voice to an amalgamation of emotions. And it's important that we can be here together. And I think it's definitely healing when we are together and we're able to perform, because similar to some of the things that Paul was saying, it is very much a spiritual affair. You know, this whole idea of an invocation keeps reminding me of church, and
very
being
much
get an atmosphere and to get it charged and to present something that's going to actually, you know, cause people to be in a real oasis of sorts, but where you can really truly get a release, because it's more than necessary, especially now because it's a tinderbox.
Yeah, yeah. One thing I've learned about improv is that improvisers are incredibly smart, and everyone who does improv, if they're still doing improv, chances are they're also incredibly smart. So what I look at from that, I don't know how you guys accepted me in improv, but everyone is very smart. And what I like about that is that when it comes time for these situations, I look at what the improv community is saying, and if the improv community is saying something, chances are they're right. Chances are they're very right. So we all need to listen more and open our eyes more. I know for myself personally, I need to open my eyes more. I really did not see things going this way, and now it's all kind of been exposed, and you go, the police department is not a it's almost like a military. It's almost like what gun laws have become, where where there's no regulation on anything, you start to see how damaging that really can be. I thought things were getting better, but it turns out it just looked like things were getting better from my point of view. But right now, that's as much talking as I can say, because right now I think it's my job to listen. So I'm going to try and listen more. So real quick, because we're coming up on the end of the show here, I just want to make sure we get everyone's info out so that people know. Your show is on Fridays, you said, at 5:30? Every Friday at 5:30?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Cool. And we can get to that how? On your Facebook page?
Yes, our Facebook. Yeah, it's all streamed through Facebook Live.
Black Improv Alliance.
Black Improv Alliance on Facebook and Instagram. And
All
Cash
right.
App, for the record.
Oh, yes. So the Cash App, so people can pay you to, or pay you for the performance?
Reparations, performance, whatever they want.
Okay. Now, I want to apologize to Alex. Alex, I voted for Daryl at the last show.
No, why would you apologize for that?
No, wait, no, get it right.
Fake broccoli.
Did you vote for Little Cauliflower Girl? Is that who you voted for?
I voted for Little Collie.
That's what I thought.
That's right.
I did.
That's right.
But look, it was real close. It was real close.
Thanks.
That's how it goes.
Gotta let him down easy.
And Paul, anything else? Paul, thank you very much for being here. All of you guys. Yeah. Anything else you want to throw in? You want to let people know?
Nope. I think I said it all. I mean, I'm on, you know, you have all my social medias and stuff. I imagine you'll put that somewhere where people can find it.
Oh, yeah.
It was great meeting you guys, being part of the conversation, and all that jazz.
It's great
Cool.
meeting you too, Paul.
Nice to meet you.
Looking forward to reading the book.
Yes,
great.
It is The Triangle of the Scene, and it is available where books are sold, right? Is there a place that you'd prefer people get it from, Paul?
It's really only available on Amazon, so that's where books are sold now. I don't know if
Amazon. All right, get it. You can't have this copy. It's mine. He signed it.
Oh, look at you.
It is honestly one of my favorite books, favorite improv books. But yeah, go on his YouTube channel, watch his videos. As you can tell just from this interview, you're just a wealth of knowledge, and you're such a humble guy. I mean, to think about all that you've done and all that you know would really intimidate me too much. But you have a great quote that I love to share with my new teachers, which is, I'm just someone who's a little bit further down the road saying, hey, it's this way. And that really affected me, because I think it's important that, you know, for those of us that are improvisers, there's also a lot of you that are future improv teachers, and a lot of you are afraid to teach, and you shouldn't be, because even if you've only been doing improv for a year, you know more than everybody else. Anyway, I'm done with that. But Black Improv Alliance, thank you guys for being here. Always a pleasure. Thank you, everybody who's commenting. Thank you. And don't leave yet, but we're going to end the live stream. And to all of you listening and watching at home, we really appreciate it. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon.